Hi everyone, so I am 25 weeks pregnant. I'm actually 26 weeks at the end of this week, which is crazy. Obviously I've just got a super busy life this time around because I'm struggling to keep up with the weekly pregnancy updates if you haven't noticed. First on the agenda, although it has absolutely nothing to do with my pregnancy, I have to talk to you guys about the earthquake that hit my country last week. So it's been exactly a week today. Today's Monday. If you don't know anything about New Zealand, one thing you should know is that New Zealand is prone to earthquakes. We always earthquakes. It's just, we're sitting on two tectonic plates. We're sitting on this massive, you know, fault line. So New Zealand is just a country that is always going to have earthquakes. I'm in the North Island, and down in the South Island is Christchurch, and that was the one that 5 years ago had that massive earthquake and heaps of people died. So the earthquake that happened last week was actually bigger than that earthquake, I think. Hopefully I've got my facts right. And it was felt a lot wider. So this earthquake was also in the South Island, yet all of us up here felt it, and all of us up here felt it really strongly and really bad. So the damage down where its epicenter was is just insane. Thankfully, still sad, but thankfully only 2 people died. That's still 2 people too many, but thankfully it wasn't a lot more. So I seem to have this really handy knack of being able to predict earthquakes. It just seems to happen all the time. Either I'll dream about earthquakes, or I've dreamt about tsunamis and they've happened on other parts of the world, or mostly earthquakes in my own country. But I just seem to have this knack of predicting them. So, okay, so on Sunday, me and my cousin went to a cafe, and I remember just saying to her, I feel like this is earthquake weather. I just feel like it feels weird. And that later on that day, all that day, I remember just feeling really uneasy. And that night, we were watching Grand Designs, and that particular episode was about a guy building a house in the earthquake zone and making it built to kind of withstand earthquakes, and I just thought that was quite uncanny. And I went to bed and I felt really uneasy. If you've watched my spooky story that I did for Halloween, I seem to see things when I'm in bed. Could be dreams, half awake, half asleep, I don't know, whatever. But it's happened for a long time, and I went into more depth about that story in my spooky stories. I'll link it up here somewhere. Anyway, so that was kind of happening, except this time it wasn't people. It was something was being thrown in my face. And I kept waking up and I kept feeling really uneasy. And then the last time I woke up, it was midnight. And I was like, oh, for goodness sake, I just need to get my brain to shut down. And so I sat up and I was like, okay, I'll just make myself get fully awake, and maybe that'll help me drift off into a proper sleep and I won't get these weird things happening to me. So I sat up and I just had a breather, just kind of woke myself up a little bit, and then I felt this shaking. And I was like, okay, I think we're having a little earthquake in my head. And then it started shaking a bit more, and I was like, I knew it! I just knew that there was going to be an earthquake. It was so weird. And I like prodded Martin. I'm like, Martin, I think it's an earthquake. And he's like, what? And he kind of said, I'm like, it's an earthquake. And it just went from this little, like, we're used to getting earthquakes. We always get earthquakes. So it was this little shake, and then it started shaking a bit more, and I was sitting there going, oh, this is a really good earthquake. And then it started getting really quite violent, and I thought to Martin, we need to go get the kids. And so we got up, and when we got up out of bed and got to the kitchen, that's when the full-blown blast hit, and we couldn't walk. It was that bad that it was like being on a boat. It was just so violently shaking, like, well, not even that slow, it was like this. It was just so insane. I've never experienced an earthquake that big in my entire life, and I live in New Zealand. So I was like clinging onto the wall going, and because I could hear things falling, I started to panic, and I thought, get the kids out. So Marta ran to Roman's room, I ran to Mila Rose's room, and I could see her like bird cage up here swinging, like not just a gentle sway, it was like a full-on like swinging like this, and that's what made me go, oh shit, this is bad. And of course we just changed her room around, and so this thing here wasn't attached to the wall, her big bookcase wasn't attached to the wall. Her look at the stars, look how they shine for you, big board thing up here, that was thrown onto the floor, things were falling off her bookcase. And then when we got the kids up, it stopped. And I was like, okay, quick, get the kids back to bed before they fully wake up and freak out about things. So we got them back into bed, and we looked in Roman's room, and all of his name above his bed, which is R-O-M-A-N, like the R-O-M had fallen off, and it's right above his bed. In New Zealand, we need to start blue tacking things down. Like, we get told that all the time. You need to secure your items, and we're all Kiwis here, so we're like, oh, it'll be fine. We should have secured our items, because they could have hit him in the head. That could have fallen on Mila Rose. I mean, the bookcase has always been joined to the wall anyway, but because we'd just moved her room around, it wasn't secured to the wall yet, and of course then there's an earthquake. But that's my experience with the giant earthquake that happened. People were still without power, roads are completely destroyed. There's an entire patch of road down south that's completely destroyed. It's just insane. Go on YouTube. So many videos out there of the earthquake. There's ones about lights that were lighting up the sky while the earthquake was happening. Lots of footage of the earthquake. It's just insane. So go on YouTube and just YouTube New Zealand earthquake 2016 or something, and you'll get all that footage. It was freaky. So now that most of my pregnancy update was taken with an earthquake, I better tell you about my pregnancy. So symptoms, generally the same, nothing new. Movements, I'm feeling them a lot stronger and a lot more, which is great. I had my anatomy scan, I had my growth scan, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about really quickly. Was at my growth scan, they did notice that he was measuring quite small, so she wasn't too concerned, and then she's like, oh, he's probably not that bad, and she was looking around and doing his bits and pieces and measuring, and she tried to get a 3D, so I'll show you those photos here. She did try to get a 3D, but he was like practically like cuddling the placenta, so we didn't get a good shot of his face. But after the results of that scan, I'm going to be in there for many more scans, so she said that we'll give it another shot. But at the end, at the results, he is only in the 13th percentile, which then later my midwife called and said he was only in the 11th percentile. So I don't know if he's in the 11th or the 13th, but if he is in the 13th percentile, that's still pretty bad. If he's in the 11th percentile, it's even worse, because once they drop below the 10th percentile, it's considered a high-risk pregnancy, and I'll have to go through an OB, which is not going to make a difference because I already have to see the OB once every 1 to 3 weeks anyway. Everything's measuring a few weeks behind. He's really tiny, but everything is working well. His placenta's, his cord, you could see the blood pulsing through his cord. She said he's not struggling there at all. That's happy. He's active. He's doing everything that he should be. He's just really small. And she also assured me that he is all around small, so he's not like disproportionately small. So what she was trying to say is that he's not a dwarf, but we're not having a dwarf child, he's just a tiny wee little baby. But I mean, I've given birth to a 6.1 6 pound 1 ounce baby, that was Roman, and a 6 pound 14 ounce baby, that was Mila Rose. So they're not exactly huge babies anyway, so obviously I'm just prone to carrying small babies. But of course they're going to keep a really close eye on me, because blood pressure can cause this, you know, issues with the placenta. I have an appointment with my obstetrician in a few hours, so you won't find out that info until next week, unless you've joined my Facebook page. From there I'll find out if it's actually the 11th or the 13th percentile that he's sitting in. I'll find out whether my bloods and my urine came back fine. I presume they're not deadly, because I haven't heard anything, and I sent them in a few days ago. And I guess I'll find out if I need to see the OB once a week, or if we can actually get it down to once every 3 weeks, which would be great, because it's not very far away till I start seeing my midwife every fortnight instead of every month. So these appointments are going to start racking up. So I'm going to have the OB, I'm going to have my midwife, and I'm going to have the growth scans. So luckily I live locally now with Roman. His pregnancy was a little bit like this, with having to see the OB and getting growth scans and that all the time, except I lived ages away from the hospital, and I had to go 2-3 times a week, and it was like it really sucked. But I was also further along my pregnancy. I was in the 30-something weeks by that time. I'm only 25 weeks and this is already happening. Oh dear. Really, that's why I thought I'd share my earthquake story, because that's literally all that's going on with this pregnancy, was just that I had my scan and he's measuring very small. Other than that, it's like I'm just cruising along. I'm taking a whole bunch of pills, I'm seeing a whole bunch of people, but whatever keeps this baby and this pregnancy safe. We'll see what happens at my OB appointment this afternoon. The nursery is going really well. I'm just waiting for the wardrobes to be done now, because once the wardrobes are done I can start putting his little clothes away, which I think will make things seem like really real. They already do, but even more real, like putting his little outfits away and just looking at everything going, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have a baby in my hands soon. And by soon I mean in less than 15 weeks. There is no way I'm gonna make it to 40 weeks now with how things are going. I've just kind of come to accept that. I'm hoping, but I'm also accepting that it's probably not gonna happen. So it's probably less than 15 weeks now that we get to see our wee baby boy, meet him and see what he looks like. I just love all those bits of pregnancy. That's exciting. Finding out who this person is. And just remember, we will be doing daily till baby vlogs. That's a daily vlog of like the month leading up to birth, which I'll kind of adjust accordingly if I think that birth is going to be kind of imminent with what's going on. So yeah, but there'll be at least a month of daily vlogging of my pregnancy, which will be really exciting and I can't wait to look back on. Not a lot going on, but let's just get on with the belly shot.